Welcome to TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John, that's my cohort and commentary Ashton, and this is our Monday Night Raw review. Yes, you heard that right. TWitWoW is formally back in the saddle with Monday Night Raw and SmackDown Live reviews. As you guys know, we did live reactions last week, so there was no formal 2-hour reviews, but tonight that all changes. We are back, and I've got to say, for the first episode back, I really enjoyed this Monday Night Raw. I thought it was a very fun show. The one word that really comes to my mind when I think about this Raw, I thought the pacing was on point. Normally, with Raw being 3 hours, I feel the wear and tear of the show. I really didn't tonight. I thought there were enough quality segments in each individual hour to really carry me through. And on the whole, I'm happy to say that on our first episode back, I'll give this show a thumbs up. Partner, what'd you think of it?
Yeah, man. I mean, I see where you're coming from, but there was a lot on this show that annoyed me and frustrated me and made me just kind of think to myself, like, right now and what could be done to fix it or change it or whatever. And I came up with a few answers. And I think we're going to have a really interesting first segment coming up. So if you want to get right into that, I'm ready.
We'll get right into it, and I'll take the ball. Heat of the night. And the reason I'll take the ball is because I only have one nitpick. I really didn't have any problems with this show tonight. My only nitpick, and I'm going to phrase it as the overprotection of Roman Reigns. That was really my only qualm. We had Joe and Reigns tonight. A solid match. Really love the pre-match beatdown by Joe. I get it, given the kind of character he's kind of developing on the main roster as a heel, as this hired gun, ready to take out everybody. I get that. And I'm like, oh, this is cool because now you can give Joe the win and you can protect Reigns. And I thought that pre-match beatdown was enough to protect Reigns, right? But then you have Strowman come out with the distraction. And to me, I felt like it cheapened everything. And I was conflicted about this match because I love Braun Strowman. And I think he gets better and better every week. And I love that he's having this match with Reigns at Fastlane, which we'll get into later, and all that stuff. But everything he did, he could have waited to do until after, like, Joe choked Reigns out, which was the finish I was hoping for, given what Joe would say in his first promo, which we'll get to later. I just felt like Joe became a background performer when the focus should have been all about him. And yeah, that's my only nitpick. I feel like they could have done better by Joe in his main roster debut, but that's really my only complaint. I really enjoyed this show.
Yeah, that actually plays into my big heat of the night. And the only reason I don't have more than one heat of the night is because of the running theme. Lena hasn't debuted in literally like 5 months at this point, and to make that a heat of the night would just be repetitive. So I'm not even going to touch that. Otherwise, if I felt really salty tonight and I really wanted to kind of dig my claws into this show, that would be heat of the night. But I'm going to let it go because it's been going on for so long that, like it's like in freaking football where if somebody commits the same penalty 10 plays in a row, the referee isn't going to throw all 10 flags. I can't throw the same flag every single week and give the WWE shit for the Emelina stuff. So I'm going to bring it up now for the sake of being like, hey guys, I hate this, and then I'm going to move on from it. My first, and I'm pretty sure my only actual heat of the night, is the incessant interference in almost every match tonight and literally every championship match tonight.
You know what? I'm going to jump the gun here, and I'm going to say it was so bad, and I do agree with you on that front, that was my Raw request, is less dirty finishes in your big matches, please. Because you even made a great point when we were talking about the show as it was going on, that's the big difference between SmackDown Live and Raw, but I'll let you articulate that since that was your kind of kernel of brilliance, man. I really like that point that you made.
Yeah. Before I do get really into this, I know that we're kind of like on our first show back from a long break, and we're kind of, we don't necessarily remember all the little tiny intricacies. What was your rating of this show on a scale from 1 to 10?
Honestly, I'd give it a 9 out of 10. I had a lot of fun.
What?
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with this show. And again, I thought the pacing was on point. and I thought the stuff that
Wow.
was really good.
I mean, we're talking heat of the night. That's the shock of the night right there. I am legitimately flabbergasted that you thought the show was that good.
I don't know if it was because I felt high energy or what, but yeah, this show really
Maybe.
didn't get on my nerves. Like I was in a good mood.
Well,
So.
I mean, I feel like a show not getting on your nerves is something that just should happen. It's not something you should reward a bonus for, you know?
I mean, true, but I mean, given the standard that Raw has set, and I felt like they did come out with some good stuff. I mean, they were fast lane focused, which I liked. Some great stuff in the cruiserweight division, surprisingly, which I had to give them big points for. I can't wait to talk about that, actually. So yeah, I mean, by Raw standards and just by standard, television standards, good show for me. I'm guessing, if I had to guess based on like your heat of the night and everything, are you hovering like around a 6, lower? Like where are you?
No. Let me. What I was going to say is, if I feel like a Raw wasn't great, wasn't bad, it didn't offend me, it didn't make me angry, but it didn't really get me overly excited about anything. To me, that's a 7.5 out of 10. It sounds like that's kind of what you're trying to describe with this, and you're going to get a 9. So I'm a little off there.
Yeah.
But I would say this show was a 7 out of 10. That's what I've been thinking this whole time.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Because like there was it was relatively harmless for the most part, but the constant interferences in big matches really frustrated me because, yeah, we'll kind of use this transition back to heat of the night because we are still in that segment. Bayley versus Nia Jax had interference. Sheamus and Cesaro versus the Club had interference. Chris Jericho versus Sami Zayn had interference. And the main event, Joe and Reigns had interference. So we had 8 matches tonight. Half of them ended because of interference. Or due to interference, that being the tag match with Enzo and Cass causing a DQ.
Right.
Listen, Raw, I appreciate you not wanting to give away your big title matches on TV, even though there's literally no point to doing that anymore since pay-per-view buys are worthless to you now since you have the network. But if you're going to advertise a championship match, give us a championship match. I'm so jaded by this whole, we're going to get a championship match. But it's not really going to be a championship match because they're not going to give away that finish on TV, right? That's kind of what I love about SmackDown is that SmackDown is willing to give us championship matches with clean finishes. Month it seems like lately, like they've been really generous to their audience as far as being willing to give away important matches on TV. And I think that's why the audience is growing at a relatively consistent rate. I mean, it's not growing fast. It's not an exponential rate, but it seems like every week that goes by or every other week it goes by, the viewership numbers for SmackDown are going up a little bit and Raws are either staying the same because they have a special like old guy, whether it's Roman or not Roman, like whether it's Brock or Goldberg or Taker, or they're going down at a steady rate. So really, I feel like SmackDown is trending up. Raw is trending kind of even, maybe a little bit down. I really just think that the constant interference on Raw takes me out of it. It makes me think, well, if this is how you're going to just end all of your title matches, why would I bother in getting invested in a television championship match in the first place?
Yeah, I can certainly appreciate where you're coming from. Like, on one hand, I like that Raw, and I think it really started to become more prominent once they knew that SmackDown beat them in the ratings. I do like that they're featuring more championship matches on TV. I do think that's a step in the right direction, but it's not a step fully taken when you have these dirty finishes. And that to me is something that I hope they work on because we even have like another championship match to look forward to next week in Las Vegas. I'm kind of hoping we get the Raw roulette wheel, but I doubt it because they didn't say anything. But it's hard for me to get really hyped about it given the precedent that they set just even with this one show in a vacuum of, every championship match is going to end dirty or have foul play or this, that, or the other. So I totally get where you're coming from.
Yeah, man. To me, it's not even really like I'm going to kill you, WWE, if you keep doing this. It's more just like you guys do realize that it's possible to get people actually invested in television championship matches if you let them finish, right?
Yeah, it amazes me that, SmackDown seems to have a completely different booking philosophy than Raw, and Raw really hasn't picked up on it yet. I mean, maybe they will eventually. I wouldn't really get my hopes up. But I guess we'll see what happens with them. But yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
definitely agree with
All
you.
right. Really, if I had any other nitpicks, I think that sort of my only other real problem would be, oh God, what was it? I had something. I don't even remember what it was. I did have something else, but now I forgot about it for some reason. I don't know.
So I guess, do you want to move on to our next segment?
I'm trying to figure out what the other thing was. Oh, yeah, just the fact that Samoa Joe needed interference to win his first match on the main roster is annoying because like this is. I feel like they already are underselling Joe because this is the dude that he's literally the only man to ever defeat the Demon Balor on a live special. Even freaking Golden Boy Roman Reigns couldn't beat Balor in his human form. Rollins, I think it was, couldn't beat Balor as the Demon. Samoa Joe beat Balor as the Demon.
Right.
Right there, like that's all you really need to know about him. And yet here we are tonight, immediately first night on Raw, because he is a heel, he's not allowed to win clean, and especially not over Roman Reigns. And he won with the Uranagi. Like I don't even like that about the way that they're treating him on Raw.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with you there. I was missing the muscle buster. I thought he'd win with the coquina clutch. That's what I was hoping for. Again, given the content of his opening promo where he's like, I choke out your heroes, and then when they wake up, I beat them down again. I really like that by Joe, but we didn't get that. We got this, kind of Uranagi slam off the ropes, which doesn't look bad, but it just didn't feel like Joe. It definitely felt out of place. So yeah, kind of a disappointing debut given all those factors. But I'm just glad to see him on the main roster, and I thought he did as well as he could do with what he was given. It's just a shame that he kind of got shafted.
Yeah, man. So I think that's about it for me as far as Heat of the Night goes. If we want to get into our actual review segment, I'm ready to go.
All right, brother, then everybody let us get right into our Monday Night Raw review. And now we start the show with a video package recapping Rollins and Triple H, that whole relationship, Triple H's promo last week, and of course Joe's debut. I thought the video package was very well done, set a great tone for the show. But then as far as our first formal segment, we start with Mick Foley and Stephanie McMahon introducing Samoa Joe. Now, what did you think about this segment, Ashton?
I do kind of dig the dichotomy and the growing dissension between Mick and Stephanie. I feel like at first they had kind of an apprehensive trust in each other where they were like, you know what, Stephanie believed in Mick to give him the job, and the fans like Mick, and Mick kind of had that, oh, well, you gave me my job, so yeah, I'm going to kind of go along with what you say. And over the months, that's been growing apart. They've been growing to kind of dislike each other. Mick has a growing dislike for Triple H, and the fact that Stephanie isn't doing anything about Triple H certainly doesn't help. So I don't think they're going to build towards any kind of a match between Mick Foley and Triple H, but we could eventually see like a Mick Foley guy versus either Triple H himself or a Triple H guy. That might have even been tonight with Roman versus Joe. You never know. But yeah, I like the way that they kind of handle that in the opening segment with Mick being like, oh yeah, here's Samoa Joe. And then Stephanie being like, I don't think Mick did what, he did it justice. This is the Samoan submission machine, Samoa Joe, and like making this big deal, making this big kind of fiasco about it. I
Yeah,
loved Joe's promo, him talking about how it took him 18 years to get here and how it was Triple H who opened the door for him to get into the WWE, and then him putting the locker room on notice, and then, like you said, talking about beating down your heroes, choking them out, and then when they wake up, beating them down again. That was all great. And then, of course, Roman Reigns. You know, can I ask you a weird question, John?
sure.
When you were younger, did you ever play like kind of make believe games with your friends or your sister or anybody else like your age where like it was like a pretend fight or like a pretend war And because it was pretend and there were no actual consequences, you could just pretend that everything they did didn't affect you and just be like, oh, I dodged that. Oh, that didn't affect me. Oh, like, I did this thing to counter what you did. Like, all, like constantly just being like, everything you do either doesn't affect me or the effect it has on me doesn't matter.
I had like one or two encounters like that. Yeah.
I had a friend back in middle school and high school that I used to like kind of, do that kind of stuff with. Not high school, middle school, but yeah, that's what Roman Reigns feels like to me. Roman Reigns feels like a guy who thinks he's untouchable because, as far as the writing goes, he is. And that comes off as very heelish. It comes off as an unlikable trait. He comes off sort of almost like a male version of Stephanie McMahon that the WWE wants you to like.
Yeah, I can certainly agree with your sentiments there. As far as my whole feelings about this segment, I was going to keep it brief. I think you really articulated everything I was going to about Joe's promo. I thought it was on point. I like that they're continuing to play up tension between Stephanie and Mick. If for no other reason, I do think Mick's going to go off TV soon to get his hip taken care of, so I understand the necessity of that interaction. And as far as Roman Reigns, again, like I groaned like you did, and I agree with everything you said. I didn't even feel like he was terrible here, though. Like, even his quip about how I'm going to give him a choice, Portland. Either he can shut his mouth or I'll cave it in. For him trying to be a babyface, I can see why that line would have appeal. It's just, you're right. Like, again, we've been over this. He should be a heel. He has that swagger like a heel. And just the writing, though, says, like, he's this good guy babyface. It's just this contradiction that is an absolute mess. And until it's resolved, there's nothing really more I can say than that.
It's funny. It actually kind of seems like almost like a well-known fact, kind of like a just like a common knowledge, common logic, well known that WWE just straight up doesn't know how to write baby faces anymore. And I'm like legitimately I'm getting to the point that I don't even want to even try to challenge that notion because I can't tell you the last time there was a well-written baby face on Raw.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I don't really know if there's like a consistently well-read baby face. Like if Rollins proves anything, at best there are baby faces like they have their moments, but there isn't consistency. There's a difference between moments and consistency. Raw writing can have the former, but I don't know if they can ever really have the latter.
Well, after this whole segment, we get into backstage and we see Bayley walking away with Cesaro and Sheamus. She gives them headbands, and they kind of sell it different ways. Cesaro's all happy, and he puts the headband on willingly, and he's all like joyous and gleeful about it. Sheamus is just like, oh, what the hell is this? And then he acts like he's gonna fling it away, and Bayley quick grabs it and is like, no, don't do that. And then we go to commercial. When we get back from commercial, though, we have our first match of the night: Bayley versus Nia Jax.
Yeah, I'm just going to, again, keep it brief. I thought this was a solid match. We know the style of match that these two are going to work. We've seen it multiple times. It's that David versus Goliath type booking with Nia Jax playing the kind of monster role, with Bayley playing the underdog. We saw Nia Jax employ like a lot of power offense and submissions that would really, drain the energy of Bayley and stuff like that. Bayley did get the hope spot with the ring post, Nia accidentally running into it and then Bayley ramming her into it. And we thought Bayley was going to get the count out win, but then Charlotte comes out to interfere and distract Bayley. Bayley takes care of her, I believe, with a drop kick. Drop kicks her off the apron. But then Nia recovered at that point, hit a Samoan drop and got the win. So I'm just going to say right now, knowing that Nia got this win, the way I see it going down, I see Bayley beating Charlotte next week. Charlotte beating Bayley at Fastlane, and then because Nia got the win over Bayley and Sasha still has her unfinished business, which we'll get into that a little bit later, that's how we're going to get our fatal four-way that's rumored at Mania. What do you think?
I 100% agree. That's exactly what I was thinking. I even said when they announced, oh, Bayley's going after Charlotte for the Women's Championship next week, I was like, oh, so they're going to put the title on Bayley on television in the build-up to WrestleMania. This feels weirdly similar to the way the Usos were handled a few years ago.
Yeah. And you know what? I don't really know how I feel about that because it's like, what point is there to Charlotte having all these stats and this veneer of credibility if she can never really hold on to the title for very long? To me, it just becomes kind of a joke, and all the women are just playing hot potato with the Raw Women's Championship. But either way, should be a solid outing between Charlotte and Bayley next week in Vegas. And I'm really more curious. Like, the most curious piece to me in this whole thing is Sasha Banks with how she's being written. And again, we'll get to her a little bit later. But yeah, the match was fine. Just again, dirty finish to promote next week. Nia's still looking, well, as dominant as she can with the dirty finish. Not really much more you can say than that.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing with Charlotte and Sasha later on in the night, I thoroughly, not even thoroughly, at this point, I'm just at the point that I want Charlotte to get better because she's inevitable. Like, they're just going to keep shoving her down our throats. All I want is for her to not suck, and it's just not happening, and that gets me really frustrated.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I guess because I really didn't feel so visceral towards her tonight. I think because in their own way, they kind of reined her in because she only had like the interference and the brief backstage segment with Sasha. And like, I actually felt Charlotte was fine there. Maybe with me, with Charlotte, it's I can take you in small doses and I can look past it. But if you get like extended promo time, I'm really going to start seeing the chinks in the armor. So that's kind of the conclusion that I reached as it relates to Charlotte tonight. Because, yeah, I don't think, and I said this very early on several months ago, maybe even a whole year ago, that Charlotte is not a big game player. I would not trust her with extended promos. I would not trust her in a main event situation. That's just me. But I think in small doses, kind of like what I felt we got tonight, I'm fine with her. I didn't really feel like there was anything bad, but it's just she's not that big money player to me, and I don't think she ever will be.
Yeah, man. It's Charlotte. The thing is, Roman Reigns is actually really talented. I think he has charisma. I think he can talk. I think he's good in the ring. The problem isn't his talent level. The problem is his push and his alignment. Charlotte's problem legitimately is her talent level because she offers two things, and both of which are things that apparently Vince McMahon is a huge mark for. Number one, she's tall. Number two, she's athletic. That's it. That's all she has other than a name. She is tall and athletic, but being tall and athletic do not make you a good performer, do not make you a good entertainer, do not make you a good wrestler. All it means is that you're tall and athletic. There have been wrestlers who have been tall and athletic, but there have also been a ton of people who were tall and athletic that sucked at wrestling. She's one of them. Even the wrestling isn't even the worst part of Charlotte. She's like I would put her kind of on like that Nikki Bella level where she's not bad, she's not above expectation, but if you put her in the ring with somebody that can carry her to a good match, she can have a good match. She doesn't necessarily drag people down in the ring. She doesn't make people look awful in the ring. She needs to work on being able to catch suicide dives better, and selling. But, that's just a result of her not being in the business for very long. She's been here for like 2 or 3 years now. She still has time to kind of develop and grow into a better overall in-ring performer. I'm just at the point that I've given up on her as a talker. She is just a garbage. I don't even want to say talker or promoist. She's just a garbage public speaker. She's just awful at public speaking.
And see, like, there, I will completely agree with you. As I just got done saying, I wouldn't trust her with extended promos. And I like the parallel you did with SmackDown Live's Nikki Bella, because that's really where I feel like in an ideal world, if we were being realistic about talent levels, Charlotte would be somebody that's really working primarily in the mid-card, maybe has those sporadic kind of bursts in the main event scene in the women's division, but really just predominantly working in that undercard level. The idea that she's gotten all this main event shine, really, I don't care for it. I know you don't either, but it's going to continue to be the standard. So the best thing we can do is grin and bear it. And to your point, hope that she tries to suck less in the future. But that's all I can say about that.
Yeah, and you know what? Charlotte isn't even necessarily the Batista of the new women because Batista was an amazing heel promo.
Yeah,
Batista, he was never really. Roman Reigns is the new Batista, not Charlotte, because Roman Reigns, great heel promo, good enough in the ring, great look, can't cut a face promo to save his life. That's exactly what Batista was. Roman Reigns is literally Batista 2.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment wholeheartedly. I've got nothing more to add about this match or the Charlotte discussion. So, is there anything else you want to say?
I'm trying to think of someone that more matches the Charlotte of like the new era. I feel like Charlotte is like, I don't even know, man. Like she's the weirdest case because Vince has always been a mark for people that could talk, and Charlotte just can't.
Right. I don't know. I
So,
really can't even think of any parallels myself as far as Charlotte goes. Hmm.
all right. I guess that means we should probably move on. I feel like we've been lingering on the Charlotte subject for a little bit too long anyway. You already said about how Nia defeated Bayley with the Samoan drop. Still not a huge fan of that being Nia's finisher. Not even because I don't believe it as her finisher, but because everyone else does those. Roman does those to guys, and it doesn't do jack shit. Like they're just down for a second and then they recover right away. The Usos do Samoan drops in every match. Like I feel like the Samoan drop has become too common of a move to be a finisher.
Yeah, I would completely agree with you there. I really liked it better when she did the Samoan drop, but then the follow up leg drop. That to me
The leg
was
drop, yeah,
totally
because
fine with
nobody does leg drops, so Nia doing it makes it unique.
exactly. So, on that note, let's move on to our next matchup. I have in my notes, I titled it Braun Strowman versus Four Scrubs. What did you think of
Yeah,
this
I
one?
just have Braun Strowman versus four guys. I guess I wasn't as cold hearted as you to call them scrubs, even though that's what they were. I just didn't think of that at the time. But he kills them, and one dude tries to, well, not even tries. One dude successfully runs away, and then Braun continues the rampage before being able to just cover all three of the other guys. Then he gets on the mic, cuts a promo on Foley, tells him, "I warned you, and now I'm gonna find you." And then he runs backstage, and we actually follow him backstage. He finds Foley almost immediately, and Foley, they're both really angry at each other. Foley's, "That's your idea of competition," and Foley's just like, "Yeah, you just beat four guys in one night. Is that not competition enough for you? Well, fine. Let me give you a Fastlane match against Roman Reigns."
God, I hope Strowman wins. I even put that in my notes. Really, you summarized
He'll
all my
win
points
because of
perfectly, so I'm
Reigns.
not going
I
to linger on
seriously,
this. I'm just going to reiterate something I've been
dude.
saying.
I think Roman is going to lose because Taker is going to cost him the match. So yet again, it's going to be, big guy who shouldn't need help is going to get help, and still, they're going to beat Reigns that way.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. So, just to make a quick comment about this match again, since you summarized my points perfectly, I just want to echo what I've been saying to you in conversation on Twitter the last couple months. I just love Strowman. To me, he is consistently, for me personally, one of the best parts of Monday Night Raw. He's easily my favorite big guy working in wrestling right now, maybe since heel Mark Henry. I just think he's delightful, and his promos are good. Like I think there's a charisma to them, a humor to them at times if he wants to. This guy's a real asset, and I just hope WWE handles him carefully. It really is kind of walking that tightrope of giving him things to do, but not giving him too much because I don't really want people to sour. I want him to get the proper kind of heat. I love this. I love seeing those guys get demolished, obviously. And I actually am excited about Reigns versus Strowman to really see what Strowman can do in that big match situation. But I do agree with your assessment of the match. But I just wanted to kind of express that about Strowman. I'm good to move on if you are.
Yeah. All right. So up next, we had, I believe, the announcement that we were going to be getting Akira Tozawa tonight. Um, there was this big, video package for Tozawa, and Cesaro talks about all of his awesome strikes and how great his German suplex is and how much it hurts. And then we got into our third match of the night, which was Drew Gulak versus Akira Tozawa. And I feel like Tozawa did a great job of actually getting the crowd invested in him and therefore one of the cruiserweights tonight.
First of all, I completely agree with you. Second of all, I'm going to come out and say it. Akira Tozawa, to me, was the star of Raw tonight. I know a lot of people are going to say Joe, but I feel like they kind of botched the landing a little bit, as we talked about in the main event. Tozawa, though, I feel like everything from the video package with Cesaro narrating it, which was a brilliant touch, to commentary to the actual match, this guy was a star tonight. I want to see more of this for the cruiserweight division. I completely agree with you about the little battle cry that he does in matches, the ha, 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 because I think we live in an era where
Ah!
I'm not saying we live in an era where people are necessarily stupid, but I think, the simpler the better. Yes, 10, things like that are very attractive and catch on very quickly and that you can do in unison. That's a perfect thing that you can do in unison in crowd. So great psychology there and working the crowd. He's fun to watch. That German suplex is gorgeous, and you couldn't ask for a better debut opponent than Drew Gulak, who honestly, in all fairness, should be getting his own shine, but I don't think he ever will, seeing as how they originally wanted him to be a trainer at the Performance Center, which is a goddamn insult. But keeping the focus on Tozawa, finally, to me, the Cruiserweight division has a star that they established in one night. I mean, I love guys like Cedric and Jack Gallagher, and I think they'll get there one day, but Tozawa came in immediately, and he had that big deal feel about him. I loved everything about this, dude.
Yeah, man, this was really good. I love that Tozawa kind of immediately got that kind of chant over. That gave the crowd a way to interact. It let them kind of keep invested in the match. It's not brilliant by any means because it's just him like yelling and really I think the brilliant part is that he didn't really like when he originally did that. It was at the CWC, and he wasn't doing it with the intention of getting it over. It's just kind of some like a noise that he makes randomly in his matches, and the crowd started yelling back at him. And I'm pretty sure he told them to shh at one point in one of his CWC matches because they were getting on his nerves. And I guess now he's embraced it and he's going to kind of use it as a tool to continue to get over. And I love that.
I mean, I'm telling you, if Akira Tozawa's debut is any indication, if he continues on this trajectory, do not be surprised at all if it's him versus Neville at Mania for the Cruiserweight Championship. Because this guy,
that I will disagree with, because I think that Neville is either going to be facing Cedric Alexander, who it could very possibly be Cedric Alexander at Fastlane, so that's why I'm not 100% sold on that. Or I think his opponent is going to end up being Gallagher at Mania.
See, now that's funny because I disagree with you. Because again, just to jump the gun a little bit, since you mentioned Fastlane, I think Gallagher is going to be facing Neville at Fastlane, and I'll give my justification later when we get to the appropriate segment. Cedric might get the chance at Mania, and that was even my fantasy booking, except I had Ibushi as champion. But if it's not Cedric, I would have no qualms about it being Tozawa, nor would I be surprised if it was Tozawa. I mean, again, he immediately came in and made his mark on the division, and he's got that star quality, which I think the division so desperately needed. By the way, post-match with Kendrick coming in and shaking Tozawa's hand, I think that was a curious touch. Maybe Kendrick's going to work with Tozawa, which I really like. I think those two could have some really fun matches together. So overall, I'm really happy for Tozawa. I think he might be what the Cruiserweight division needed to really get taken to that next level. Awesome stuff tonight.
Yeah, man. All right, well, Tozawa picks up a win, and then post-match, randomly, for no reason that I am aware of, Brian Kendrick comes out and shakes his hand and then just leaves, and that's it. And the only real explanation commentary gave was that Kendrick considers himself to be the veteran of 205 Live, and I think that they also mentioned that he considers himself Tozawa's mentor.
Now, to be fair, I think there is some background for this. Again, to WWE's credit, like this one segment, like I feel like WWE really checked all the boxes, and I got to commend him for that, because I know Kendrick in the past, like when Neville returned, he came out and he's like, oh, as the veteran, like I asked, how can you have a Cruiserweight tournament without Neville and all that stuff? And then when Tajiri came back, which I hear he's going to be, returning soon, recovering from injury, he tried shaking Tajiri's hand on episode of 205 Live. He got misted in the face. So he really didn't like that, and now he's doing this thing again with Tozawa. So it's been kind of a recurring thing for Kendrick, to WWE's credit. I'm just hoping that we get matches between the two soon.
Yeah, man. So up next, we had a match, I believe. There were a few points in the night when I just randomly forgot to take notes. I'm pretty sure, though, that up next was our tag title match between Cesaro and the Club, because I know that there was a point when Owens and Jericho came out, but I'm pretty sure that happened.
That was actually after the Cruiserweight segment, partner. So we're actually going to talk about that next.
Segment, the Tozawa segment, or the later Cruiserweight segment?
The Tozawa segment.
Oh, well, then let's talk about that now, because this was actually really good.
Yeah, well, I mean, since you said that, I want you to go first. What did you think about this?
Okay, well, first of all, I appreciate Chris Jericho putting Tom Brady's name on the list, because if anyone deserves it, it's that piece of shit. I think Goldberg coming out was a great, it was a great sign of unity for the city of Atlanta, because if anyone needs it now, it's them. And I think that Chris Jericho basically screwing Kevin Owens in this segment is a possible hint at a future face turn for Jericho.
I mean, I completely agree with everything you just said. Again, just to make it very quick, the rapport of Jericho and Owens made this segment for me. I love their chemistry together. It's always on point. Jericho's catchphrases are so over. You know the babyface turn is coming. And if that alone wasn't enough, like you said, him screwing Kevin Owens, being like, getting all up in Goldberg's face, I never liked you. And you want a match at Fastlane? You'll get a match at Fastlane against Kevin Owens. You got your match. And I'm like, oh, Chris. Like,
sold Owens out.
Yeah. Pushed him down the goddamn river and didn't even have the courtesy to give him a paddle. As far as Goldberg goes, dude, I mean, he's just going to be over. The guy's never been an exceptional promo, but when you have the star quality that he does, you don't need to be. Plus, to his credit, what he couldn't say, he did, because I love that he took Jericho's list and put his name on it and said, well, look at that, Portland. I just made the list, and just taking Jericho's like fire away from it, and Jericho, of course, throwing a fit about that. So I feel like Goldberg, the way he handled himself, that's what you'd expect from a veteran of his stature. And I love this segment. I hate that we're getting this Fastlane Championship match. I was really hoping for a different route for the Universal title at Mania, because I think we know what all of us know what this spells. But grading this segment on its own merits in a vacuum, it was well done. I can't hold it against that.
Yeah. The one thing I did kind of want to say, though, is just imagine, John, if any WWE performer was booked to look as strong as Goldberg is written and booked.
I know, right? How amazing would that be?
How just immediately over they could get anyone they wanted. It's unbelievable to me.
It's amazing what credibility can do. When you can actually believe in somebody, face or heel, to actually do something, right? I mean, I know it's a crazy concept, but just something to think about.
But no, let's give it to the 50-year-old, because that makes sense.
Oh my God, makes me sick. But you know what? I don't want to go on a tangent. Just to kind of also package this in with that segment, we know when we come back from break, Kevin Owens is backstage with Jericho, and he said, you're supposed to have my back. That was not having my back. So Owens is just very distressed that this whole thing has happened to him. And he walks off, and Jericho's like, oh, come on, Kevin, come on. Or assuring him, like, I've always had your back and I always will. But yeah, there's definitely tension there. To me, the end game of all of this, and I'm sure we'll talk about this more later because there were more segments between Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho. This is definitely signaling a WrestleMania match between the two. The only question is, is it going to be for the U.S. Championship? Is it not going to be? I think it will be, but that remains to be seen. But yeah, it's definitely telegraphing to that point to me for sure.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and set a line here. The over-under for the length of the Owens-Goldberg match, I'm setting the line at 37.5 seconds.
Actually, wow. I actually think that's being generous. I'm going to go, let's see, what did Ace of Skylord say in chat? 25 seconds? You know what? I'll sign on to that. I think 25 seconds, maybe even lower than that.
You're going to take the under then?
Yeah, I'm thinking under, definitely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, man. You know what? I'm going to take the over because I think the bell's going to ring and Owens is going to get out of the ring and try and make Goldberg fight him on his own time.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's just, look, me saying that, Ashton, it's not that I have anything against Owens. I think you more than anybody know that. It's just his booking has been so bad. What else am I supposed to believe? Yeah. So, like, that's just really what I'm left with.
Oh, no. I mean, yeah, like, Goldberg's going to annihilate him as soon as they both end up in the ring. But right. I think that Owens might be able to stall it out. And yeah, like Kid Coheed pointed out, like Owens is the headlock master. I don't know if we're even going to get a headlock. But I think because Owens doesn't have that overconfidence that Brock had, and he won't just like charge right after Goldberg and end up getting shoved and then speared immediately, I do think that Owens can last longer just by being smarter than Brock Lesnar.
And that's a very good point. That's a very good point. We'll see how it plays out. I love, though, that we're really deliberating how long the match is going to be. Not, oh man, does Kevin Owens have a chance? Because none of us are on acid. Though
Yeah.
I would love to be habitual.
Well, I mean, you say acid, but I know for a fact that at least a few of our audience members, and including possibly maybe you, are on meth.
Yes, definitely. And may I just say that my room has never been cleaner. But with that said, is there anything else you want to say?
I'm not a real big fan of all this skin getting all up in my personal space.
That's so true, too. Oh my, it just brings me back to that Mets song all over again. Oh my god. Anything else you want to say about this segment?
It's like that one Family Guy segment where Quagmire was like, "What's all this skin doing on my arm?" And he just rips it off.
Yeah. Oh,
no, I don't have anything else to talk about on this segment, though. But then up next, Enzo and Cass are at ringside, tag team championship match. Cesaro versus the Club. Championship match that ends in a disqualification due to interference.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much summed it up. I thought it was a solid tag match that they had going, but the screwy finish, I'm like, meh, whatever. Sheamus has a surprisingly fun hot tag, going like over the rope with like that spin kick, and then like on the apron going to the top rope, and then doing the clothesline off the rope. So I appreciated the effort that Sheamus put into it. Him and Cesaro, it's funny now that they've dropped the titles. It seems like they're gelling a little bit more, like the double teams and stuff. I still want Cesaro to do singles instead. I think this whole thing's a joke. I've never really fully gotten on board with it, mainly because of my fandom for Cesaro. But, unfortunately, they're not going to be merciful. This is going to continue through to Fastlane because of the dirty finish with the DQ, Big Cass hitting the boot on Gallows. To me, it's very straightforward. I think the Club is going to retain at Fastlane, and the WrestleMania program is against Enzo and Cass, the realest guys. Don't know if they'll go over or not. That remains to be seen. But yeah, this match is all right. Had the potential to be good, but just that dirty finish, man, just totally screwed it up.
Yeah. And really, I was kind of actually almost expecting Cesaro to get the titles back here for some reason.
Right.
But I mean, obviously, you kind of called that there was going to be that the Club would win by cheating, and they didn't directly cheat, but they still won via cheating means, so close enough.
Yeah, and dude, I mean, let me just say, like, I can't blame you either for thinking that a title change would happen here. One, because you actually have expectations for a good product, which we all should, even if it doesn't come true. And two, when you just look at the booking of the Club, when have they ever really been credible? Like, I'm happy that they're champions, but WWE still isn't getting it right with them. Like, just let them go in there and do their thing as a tag team, and the rest will literally take care of itself in due time.
Honestly, I think that the best way to get them over as a tag team is to get each of them over individually and just kind of, I think New Japan really did kind of handle it best, because New Japan would let Carl Anderson perform and put on great matches and consistently perform well in G1 Climax. Hell, he won his block in G1 in, I think, 2013 or 2014. He was in the finals against Nakamura. Now, granted, obviously he didn't win, because if he won, Kenny Omega wouldn't have been the first Gaijin ever to win. But the idea that they gave him that spot and they trusted him to have that match, that G1 finals match with Nakamura, to make Nakamura look great on that stage, really, like, and the thing is, like, I could understand it if he was a Japanese guy and they did that. It's like, oh, well, yeah, like freaking Goto got that opportunity. Who cares? But he's a Gaijin. You don't give that opportunity to a Gaijin unless he's something special. And you and I saw, even like we're talking about his matches with Nakamura already. His match with Nakamura in G1 25 in 2015 was excellent. It was amazing. And I just feel like WWE is treating him just like he is like a freaking geek. Like he's just a nobody. Like oh, it's Carl Anderson, guys. He is basically the Christian of a tag team with no edge.
You know what? That was the perfect soundbite. I'm not even going to add anything to that. Is there anything you want to add?
I don't think I want to add anything. I think I'm just really frustrated by the way these guys have been consistently treated. and I just kind of want to, block this whole thing out of my memory and, move on, I guess.
Absolutely. So let's move on because we continue with the tag team division. We have got the New Day versus the Shining Stars. Love the New Day promo before the match. Talking about, Shining Stars, who have ever been to your resorts to Puerto Rico? Who? Nobody. And, they do all that. And then I love their bit where it's like, now the New Day, they give the people what they want. The people, they wanted magic, so we gave them unicorns. The people, they wanted to dance, so we gave them Francesca to Turbo. The people, they were starving, they were hungry, so we gave them bootios. And then, Big E's just dousing.
They make sure you ain't booty.
Exactly. So, Big E's dousing this kid in bootios and then just chucks the whole box into the crowd. And then, Big E says, I mean, what else could we give the people? Ice cream. And then they do the whole ice cream bit of ice cream for ice cream. And then it's because New Day rocks. And that whole thing.
Dude,
so really,
all I was thinking when New Day went from, we got cereal done, what about ice cream? Literally, only thing on my mind was, I wonder how Punk feels about this.
I was dude, and see, you thought it, I thought it, and my fear was the crowd gonna think it and start CM Punk chants? So I was actually relieved that they didn't.
I honestly, dude, this might be a weird thing to say, but I feel like Portland wasn't smarky enough for CM Punk chants tonight.
I would agree with you there. I would agree
though,
with
because
you there.
usually the really liberal cities like Portland, like anything in Oregon, Washington, and California, really, and sometimes and really like anything in New York City, that's like the more liberal place too. Liberal cities tend to be smarkier. Liberal cities tend to be like, oh well, this is just entertainment. They're like in the know and all that stuff. But like this crowd they were weirdly pro Reigns. They were weirdly marky. They were weirdly like out of the know for a city that I would normally identify as like a liberal city, and typically the liberal cities are the ones that are smarkier.
Right. As far as the match itself goes, I mean, my sentiments are this. I love the Shining Stars. I think Epico and Primo are wonderful. Their work is beautiful to watch.
They did a great job of actually putting over the Shining Stars on commentary, especially Michael Cole.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, Ashton, because that's actually something I omitted from my notes, but that's an excellent point. Michael Cole saying, I'm not surprised by how the Shining Stars are performing. They're one of the best tag teams in WWE. And I'm like, thank you, Cole. See, that's why, like, I get why everybody doesn't like Michael Cole, but my thing has always been, I don't like Michael Cole when somebody's in his ear. If Michael Cole is just allowed to do his job and be that wrestling guy, that play-by-play guy, I personally quite enjoy him. I know I might be in the minority. I know that might be a controversial opinion, but I feel like, I have yet to watch the UK tournament. I might watch it, though.
He was pretty good at the UK tournament. I think he and Nigel actually have really good chemistry.
Yeah, and I thought they would, dude, because Michael Cole said in interviews, I've been trying to get Nigel here for years. And, like, you could tell Michael, like, he does love the business. I think, he's had a few bad calls with moves. Nobody's going to deny that. I mean, never forget the Michinoku driver. But I think when he's not busy,
and then literally the following night on Raw, Sammy does a Michinoku driver and he calls it the Blue Thunder Bomb.
Yeah, so I mean, Michael Cole has definitely had his mishaps. Nobody's perfect, but I want the Michael Cole that does focus on the wrestling and has sound bites like that, because I'm like, wow,
I was
that
gonna
was
say,
awesome.
You know what though? Like at the same time, I feel like Michael Cole's job isn't to be a research analyst or a freaking reporter or like a journalist. Michael Cole's job is to show up, clock in, call the matches, clock out, go home, or go to the next town. Like
Exactly.
His job isn't to do the research. His job is to call the matches. So if there's a move that he hasn't seen before or he hasn't seen in a while and he forgets the name of it, like, yeah, it's easy and fun to make fun of him because, like, oh, haha, Michael Cole doesn't know what he's doing. But at the same time, like, whatever, man. Like, I always try and make it a point to call moves right on commentary, but now having actually done commentary the way we do commentary for New Japan, it is really hard to remember all of the names of all of the moves, especially when wrestlers give certain moves a specific name. Like freaking Okada has all these moves in his repertoire. Oh, that's a reverse neck breaker, but oh, that's a Death Valley driver, but oh, he calls that heavy rain, and oh, that's like a step over toe hold face lock, but he calls it red ink. Like, it's like there's all these different moves, and then there are different names for moves that are specific to each wrestler. Like, it's so much harder than it looks because it's really easy to watch a bunch of freaking who's the guy that does the top 10 list, top 10 Suicidal Dragon. It's easy to sit around and watch Suicidal Dragon videos and memorize the names of moves, but when a new guy comes out and there's very little information on him on the internet, and the information that is on the internet might be outdated, it's so hard to get move names called right.
Yeah, look, guys, this coming from a guy, in me now, that like there was a long time I wanted to do play-by-play for a living. Like that was my childhood dream, was being an announcer for WWE. Thank God I grew out of it because I enjoy doing it on TWitWoW. That's a fun thing. But when you look at all the rules and everything for commentators, because I know I think last year sometime there was that sheet released of like, oh, if you're a commentator, this is all the things you have to know.
I think the most egregious one on there is you're not allowed to say feud. You have to say rivalry.
Yeah, like you take that list plus the idea that Michael Cole can sit down and watch like copious amounts of tape or do that internet research or whatever you want to call it. I'm not going to heckle the guy anymore because you know what? I think he's in a very unenviable position. Not saying that he can't suck. But I think when he doesn't have somebody in his ear and he doesn't have to worry about a million things at once and he can actually focus on what's in the ring, I enjoy him. And I loved him and the days with Taz and the Ruthless Aggression era. And I like that little bit here with the Shining Stars. To continue on that point, bringing it full circle, I actually enjoyed that the Shining Stars were able to go out and have a match with the New Day. Because I'll be honest, I was kind of expecting a squash. So I was happy that those guys were able to go out and have a match. That said, I feel like the star of this thing was Xavier Woods. That guy is so good in ring to me, and I'm glad that he's been tagging more, the last couple of months.
To me, Woods is the best in ring. Kofi is the best talker, and Big E has the biggest personality and most charisma.
Yeah, I completely agree with all three of those categories. I mean, that missile drop kick that Xavier Woods nailed was gorgeous.
I freaking love Woods in the ring, dude. Like, I feel like he should be in freaking the Cruiserweight division. Like, give him the Cruiserweight title, man.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm glad you mentioned that, Ashton, because just to wrap this match up, I mean, New Day does win with the Midnight Hour. And I even put in my notes here at the end, have to wonder what New Day is going to do at Mania, seeing as how they've practically done everything there is to do. When is that split going to come? And when it does, I think Xavier Woods would be just ideal in the Cruiserweight division. I think he could thrive in there. And I'm still hoping Big E gets a main event spot. That is yet to be determined. But, I mean, New Day staying together for the moment. They didn't show tension in the Royal Rumble like I thought they would. So do you have a timetable when you think they're going to dissolve?
Maybe this summer, actually, because I think they might have like one last kind of run, maybe like a blow off, maybe even like that last tag title run at or around WrestleMania itself. Like, there's a chance they'll win the titles at WrestleMania and then drop them the following night to the Revival, if like something like that could happen. And I think that could spell the end of the new. Like, here's what I'll say. If they do win the titles within the next couple months, I think as soon as they drop that reign, like as soon as they drop the titles on that reign, is going to be when they start dissolving. If they don't win the titles again, I think like June-ish is when they're going to start resolving.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to agree with that timetable. I think it's just conservative enough to be believable that they'd give them that much time to really get something going. And really, I have big hopes for Xavier Woods with the existence of a Cruiserweight division. I have big hopes for Big E simply because, he does have that presence and everything. Kofi may go back to being that mid-card fixture, but you know what? I think he's taken a lot away from the New Day. Maybe he can take that with him and feel fresh in the mid-card. So I still have big hopes for these guys. Curious what they'll do at Mania,
I want Kofi Kingston to be a freaking world champion. Send that man to SmackDown. Let him challenge for the world title. I love this man. I want Kofi Kingston to be a world champion before he retires. He's never had it. There's nobody on the roster right now who's never had it who probably deserves it more than Kofi. Even Cesaro, who might be more entertaining than Kofi as far as an in-ring perspective goes, doesn't have the personality, doesn't have the promo chops, and doesn't have the tenure in WWE that Kofi Kingston does to deserve a world title. Give him the Christian pity world title run if you have to, but I want Kofi Kingston to be world champion before he retires.
And you know what's so funny? It's not that I disagree with you. It's just it's amazing to hear you like spout that out because those are talking points I've heard for years from certain people in the industry, both in and out of it now, about Kofi. Like the guy's put in the time, he's got everything that needs to be had, you know, to be competing at that level, to be a world champion. Pull the trigger on him. I would not mind, and I think if he would go to SmackDown, that could be kind of a career renaissance for him, like it's been for the Miz and other people.
And I've never been that big of a fan of Kofi Kingston. He was always not that good to me when he was just like the generic mid-card babyface. But his run with New Day, both as a heel and now in the face run, and his work on Up Up Down Down have completely won me over. He is a freaking amazing human being, and I want him to win a world title before he retires.
You know what? I completely agree with you. With that said, is there anything else you want to say about this tag match?
Well, I not about the tag match, but I wasn't even really done just kind of espousing, you know, my praise on the New Day guys. I want Kofi to be world champion before he retires, but I do agree with you. He's probably going to end up going back to the mid card. Just give him that one run. Like, give him a 2009 run, but actually pull the trigger this time. And even if you have him drop the title the next night, one freaking world title to get on his resume, because he's just like, it's like he's put in the time. You did it for Mark Henry, you did it for Christian. All the long reigning guys that have been there for a while get that. Like, it almost does feel like a pity title, but hey, if you got to do it on SmackDown, fine. SmackDown can write Kofi in a way that'll make him feel credible again, and then yeah, like that's awesome. But what I really wanted to bring up is Big E,
right?
Because Big E, to this day, I think, let me think here for a moment. He is the second most entertaining champion in NXT history, behind Neville.
Right.
I'm serious. I think he's also the shortest reigning NXT champion, maybe the second shortest behind Sammy. I don't know how the timetable works out there. But to me, Big E's rise to the NXT title, his win of the NXT title, and then his run as NXT champion was some of the best stuff I've ever seen on NXT TV. And no one ever talks about it anymore because it was pre-network and it was pre-live specials. But it was freaking brilliant.
It was. I mean, that whole 5 gimmick just got so over insanely quickly. And, you know, I would hope that they'd be able to replicate something like that for Big E, because I think he has the charisma to pull it off. I definitely think...
That's the freaking thing. In Big E, you literally have a slightly shorter, infinitely more charismatic, less clumsy version of Mark Henry. And look at how good Mark Henry was when they finally decided to pull the trigger on him.
Exactly.
That's what Big E is. He could be the world's strongest man if he wanted to do that, but he's here instead because he loves this.
Yeah.
He's 30 years old, John.
Yeah. Insane. But knowing that he's still...
That's the thing. Big E is younger than Roman Reigns.
Right. I hope WWE sees it, dude. I doubt it for obvious reasons, because we've been over this with so many talents in the past. But Big E is a guy, like, I agree with you about Kobe deserving a world title run. But to me, if we're talking about, like, what this business is about and who to me really exemplifies, like, putting those butts in seats and getting the buy rates and everything, Big E to me could be that guy. You just got to give him proper handling. And I don't trust WWE to do that, though. And that's the problem.
Yeah. Like, the crazy thing with Big E, he was born in 1986. And he was a power lifter, a professional power lifter by, like, 2010. So we're talking 24 years old, still relatively young. And by the time 2009 rolled around, he was in WWE.
Right. Unbelievable.
Yeah. So, like... Yeah, so wait, hang on a second. I might be misreading this. He competed. He might have been doing powerlifting and WWE at the same time, actually, because it says here he competed in his first USA powerlifting meet in 2010, right?
Right.
And it also says that in 2009 he signed a developmental contract for WWE. So he was doing both at the same time at 23 and 24 years old.
He's a
This
beast.
dude is and he dude, like the record, the all-time record for deadlift is 410 kilos, held by Mark Henry.
Right.
Big E has a personal record in the deadlift of 362 kilos. Like that's not actually that close, but the fact that he even is mentioned in the same breath as Mark Henry, and I'm seeing this now after I made the comparison 5 minutes ago between Big E and Mark Henry. Like that's just unbelievable to me. And by the way, Mark Henry's bench press 260 kilos, Big E's bench press 240 kilos. Again, Big E would still have to work for another few years to get anywhere close to where Mark Henry was, but the fact that they're in the same sentence together, and I literally just made that comparison a couple minutes ago, blows my mind, because these guys, like Mark Henry came into pro wrestling as kind of like this lumbering, unathletic guy where like, yeah, he was big and strong, but he couldn't really move well. You know, he was pretty much all just big and strong. Whereas Big E has been training as a wrestler since 2009. He was a powerlifting like champion, literally came in first place in 2010 and 2011 while training to wrestle. And he's still only 30 years old, and he can move in ways that Mark Henry in his prime could never hope to.
Right. Yeah,
Could you
big
imagine
upside,
Mark
man.
Henry doing a freaking standing running splash the way Big E does?
Not without tearing everything in his body, I can't.
Right?
Yeah, unbelievable, dude. Big E, again, huge upside. I just don't trust WWE to pull the trigger, and that's the tragedy here. Because
That's
he's got
exactly
it
that
all.
is a tragedy. Again,
Yeah.
like I this now I'm starting to kind of get this whole mentality, but yeah, put him on SmackDown, because if anyone's gonna do him justice, it'll be the freaking SmackDown writers.
Yeah, absolutely. So many guys I want to see go to SmackDown, but just probably aren't going to get the chance. But next year's draft, I mean, we'll
Can
see
we
what
just
happens.
treat Raw as like the WWE's trash bin, like put Natalia on there, put like all the garbage acts on Raw and all the acts that I don't care about on Raw, and then put all the great stuff on SmackDown.
Yeah, we all wish, but I wouldn't hold my breath on that, partner. But
And
anything
then
else?
you guys can cumulatively get up to $80 a month donating to our Patreon, and we'll start live reacting to SmackDown every week. So that's even better.
Oh, that plug though. But yeah, guys, see if you can meet that community goal because SmackDown Live
And by the way,
is
I do
the
want
show.
to add, guys, the $80 community goal isn't. It's not like you have to choose. Do I want to donate towards the community goal, or do I want to donate for a personalized review? You can get both. If you donate, say, $21 for a review of a 3-hour show, and 3 other people do that same thing, $84 total, that's over $80. That hits the community goal. We're live reacting to every SmackDown, plus all 4 of those people are getting a review of their shows. Like, we're not like, it's not separate goals. You have the individual goal where you can donate for a personalized review, live reaction, or both review and live reaction, and then you also have on top of that, if we get to a total of $80 cumulatively, we'll start doing live reactions to every SmackDown. So like, I want to just make that clear that those aren't separate goals. That's like a package deal.
Right. And I think that makes it all the more alluring to achieve, knowing that it's not a separate thing, but it's all packaged together. I believe in our TWitWoW fans to get it done because, yeah, SmackDown Live is a consistently fun time and live reacting to it. We did live reactions last week, wasn't phased by it, had a great time. Unlike, again, it helps that it's only a 2-hour show and not 3 hours like Raw. I felt like the matches were fun, had a great energy about it. I would not mind live reacting to that on the regular. or Raw
Yeah.
for that matter. Because I feel like live reacting, at least we all get to joke together when the show's crap and really crap on it together. So yeah, guys, I mean, see what
And
you can do.
to be fair, even though SmackDown is better consistently, Raw tends to have more big WTF moments on it.
That is true. That is true. Which that's
And
what live
then
reactions are
if
all
we live
about.
react to an episode of Raw with one of those big WTF moments on it, I get to download that clip, add a background to it, and re-upload it as a tiny clip, and we get 2,700 views on it in a week, which is what happened with the Raw debut of Joe.
Yeah, and thanks to everybody who made that possible. But that could become a regular for TWitWoW if those community goals are reached. So just whenever you can, guys, band together and let's get it done. And speaking again, things done. Let's move
And you know
on.
what? With these, we like to wait until we get to the review or live reaction or whatever it is that the person donated for. But I do want to thank Javaris Carter for his donation this month, and he did it without asking for a review. He donated. You know what? I'm not going to disclose the amount because that seems kind of like a just step too far. But I will just say thank you, Javaris, for the donation. And yeah, he was generous enough to make a donation that I'll say could have gotten him a review and chose not to even, he didn't even ask for a review. I went to him on Twitter. I said, hey, man, I saw you donated so much. Did you want us to do a review? And he said, no, I just wanted to donate. So thank you very much, Javaris. That was awesome of you. We hope that more people are as generous as you in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, my friend. Like I said, TWitWoW has the best fans on the web today. But now to get back to what you all came for, our next segment after this tag team match, backstage interview with Chris Jericho. He acknowledges that Zayn, he's a great competitor, but he's not going to beat me twice because last week was a fluke. Interview's cut short, though, because Kevin Owens interrupts. And Chris Jericho sends the interviewer away, and they kind of have their moment. Jericho tries explaining himself, but Kevin Owens is like, Chris, you don't need to. I realize you were right. You've always had my back ever since I first won the Universal title. And at Fastlane, you're going to have my back again. I'm going to beat Goldberg. They hug it out. And we know that the United States Championship match is next. But I enjoyed this promo. I enjoyed this segment. There seemed to be a lot of Jericho on this Raw, which is never a bad thing because I think they're two of the best guys on the show, despite how horribly Kevin Owens is booked. So I enjoyed this. Do you have any comments about it?
I don't think so. No, I mean, I was, let me say this actually. I was convinced that this was going to be the story going forward, and I think this would have actually been better than what we actually got tonight, and whatever they're planning on doing going forward. I thought that Kevin Owens was going to unintentionally cost Chris Jericho the U.S. title tonight, and then at Fastlane, Jericho was going to tell Owens, I don't want you at ringside. Let me try and get this back on my own. Jericho beat Zayn in a one-on-one match straight up. Maybe he wins with an eye poke or a roll-up with the tights, or maybe he just wins clean because it's Chris freaking Jericho, and Sami Zayn can afford to take a loss to Jericho. And then later on in the night, Jericho comes out in the middle of the Owens versus Goldberg match and intentionally distracts Owens around into a spear and end up losing. So like not only does that sort of protect Owens because obviously Goldberg is going to beat him either way, but then you get the Jericho babyface turn. Jericho has his title back. We can have Jericho versus Owens at Mania, and there's an actual face heel dynamic rather than just best friends that makes sense because Jericho was angry that after Jericho had done all he did for Owens, taken all those spears, all those, all that offense that everyone else is dishing out on Jericho for Owens, Owens cost Jericho the U.S. title. That's like Jericho's breaking point. He's like, okay, well, screw this guy. I'm done with this guy. I do everything for him. He does nothing but bad for me. I'm done with him. And then you get the face turn. I think that would have been a lot better. But eventually we do get Jericho versus Zayn, and Zayn loses. Jericho keeps the title. No real storyline progression there. And Owens actually helped him do it. So a little bit, this interview was kind of a nothing for me. Ended up being a nothing, but this was the interview that got me to think and like, here are all these dominoes that they could lay out and kind of knock into effect if Zayn wins tonight.
Yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from. And given that you said that, I mean, I'll just get right into the United States Championship and my thoughts on it. I thought it was a solid match. I mean, you've got two workers of just absolute quality and Chris Jericho and Sami Zayn. I did like that there were two different stories in my mind going into this match. The first being obviously the tension between Jericho and Owens, and the second being, that Zayn did beat Jericho last week. And I like the story in the match of how he's trying to get the haluva kick, but Jericho has it telegraphed. So yeah, I really think these guys have great chemistry. It'd be nice to see them have a straight up wrestling match, which we may very well get at Fastlane. But to your point, we do get the dirty finish. Zayn does get to the ropes after the walls of Jericho. Jericho distracts the ref. Owens gets his super kick, which we've seen that whole coordinated spot before. And then Jericho gets the code breaker. He retains the title. No follow up there. Solid match. But again, another dirty finish, which is certainly a point against Raw there.
Yeah. All right. So up next, John, apparently my notes are in very, very poor order. So if you want to tell us what happened next, it'll probably be better than I do.
Next, we had Sasha Banks and Charlotte backstage. I'm going to be very succinct about this. Really, Charlotte just came in and she was needling Sasha Banks, saying like, wow, it really has to bum you out to be in here after Nia Jax destroyed you, and then seeing it happen to your best friend Bayley, who was fighting for your honor. And, people always looked at us as rivals, but here you are in the trainer's room, and here I am with my women's championship and my pay-per-view streak. And she ends with the line that she didn't think Roadblock End of the Line was going to be more than a pay-per-view name, but it actually turned out to be the end of Sasha Banks' career, and she walked off. So they're continuing the downward spiral of Banks, which I think will culminate in a heel turn. I fully buy in those rumors that the big summer program, at least as far as the women's division is concerned, is going to be Sasha Banks and Bayley. And again, like I said at the top of the show when we talked about Charlotte, small doses like this, I can take her, and I feel like she did a fine job. Nothing to overly criticize. I just really don't like those in-ring, overly extended promos. This was fine. But yeah, that other stuff I think is garbage. So that was that segment. Do you have anything you want to say?
It's so hilarious to me that you're all like casual, like, oh yeah, this was fine, as long as you don't give her long promos. And meanwhile, while she was cutting this promo, I was pulling my hair out because she's just that awful.
Hey man, there you go. You continue to hate Charlotte. I learned something about my hatred for Charlotte tonight. I was able to qualify it. And so yeah, this was the least bad she's been, and I think that's only because of an exposure thing more than anything else. But that said, let's move on. Our next segment was a Neville interview, Austin Aries conducting it. What did you think about this whole segment, dude?
I thought this was pretty interesting. Honestly, I might even go as far as to say this was my favorite segment of the night, because I just like that the cruiserweights are finally, in a way, being treated like normal members of the roster. Because really, this felt like the kind of segment you would have on like the go home show for a pay-per-view for the world title, where you have one guy and then a bunch of other guys come out, and these are all guys that are going to be fighting for the title on the next show, on the big show, on the pay-per-view, or whatever you want to call it. Tomorrow night on 205 Live, there's going to be a fatal 5-way match between Cedric Alexander, Noam Dar, Jack Gallagher, Tony Nese, and TJ Perkins. And then Austin Aries asks Neville which one of those guys scares him the most, to which Neville, of course, responds, none of those guys scare me. I'm not afraid of any of them. But then, I believe it was Cedric Alexander's music who hit first. He comes out, and then Noam Dar comes out, and then Gallagher, and then Nese, and then Perkins. Perkins, I believe, was the only one that actually said any. Oh, no. Dar said something, too, because I know he... Every time Vince McMahon gets the opportunity to let Noam Dar say Alicia Fox on television, it makes him giddy. And you can tell because every time Noam Dar is on TV, he says Alicia Fox. And it's just ridiculous to me. But apparently Vince loves that he can get away with Noam Dar basically saying the F word on broadcast television just because he has an accent.
And he really put his back in.
Perkins comes out. Oh no, you go ahead. I was
gonna say that. Well, actually, two things I want to say. First off, on Noam Dar, he really put his back into saying Alicia Fox, and it's almost like he pulled a me with it, and I really did kind of giggle a little. Second of all, though, I have to correct you. Gallagher also spoke when he came out, and he said,
"That's right.
If you're going to be the king of the cruiserweight, shouldn't the king be a gentleman?" And, he did all that. But then, bringing it back to you, what did TJ Perkins do, and what did you think of it?
Perkins comes out, And he basically tells Neville that the crown on his head is imaginary. And I love that too because I think it was Austin Aries called back to that line during the match, talking about how he's making fun of Neville's imaginary crown. Meanwhile, T.J. Perkins thinks he has a crown just because his hair is shaped like one. I love that. But then T.J. Perkins, once he gets in the ring, he says, "But I really just came out here for this," and then he clocks Tony Nese. I guess maybe Nese did something dastardly to him on last week's 205 Live. We really probably should be keeping up with 205 Live if they're going to keep referencing it on Raw, but I just have no interest in watching a show with a dead crowd. That just sucks my soul out of my body.
I completely understand where you're coming from. Really, dude, you gave a perfect summation of the segment, so I'm not going to add too much. The only point I want to make that I took in my notes, Neville targeted Gallagher when it all started falling apart, and because he targeted Gallagher and because Gallagher directly mentioned, well, I guess him and TJ Perkins, to be fair, but since he said, if there's going to be a king, shouldn't he be a gentleman? I'm totally picking Jack Gallagher to win that fatal five-way tomorrow on 205 Live. Again, the bigger reason being Neville went after
and
Gallagher.
I'm picking Cedric Alexander, so that's great that we actually have different picks.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be Gallagher versus Neville at Fastlane. Think it should be a phenomenal match, maybe one of the best matches in the Cruiserweight division since it's been on Raw and everything. And you know what? I got to commend WWE again. They really took initiative in Swan's injury. They realized they couldn't, lean back on Swan and Neville having the return match because Swan is injured. Side note, I hope Swan gets well soon. The sooner we see him back, the better. So I do love this idea of a fatal five-way elimination match, and I think it's Jack Gallagher's time, and I'm excited for him because I think he's really going to show everybody that he's capable of carrying this program alongside Neville. Now, of course, you think Cedric, but you could easily say the same thing about Cedric, so it really doesn't matter. I think both guys are quality, and I think either matchup would be great for Fastlane as far as the Cruiserweight Championship match goes.
I guess I just am under the impression that the WWE sees kind of like a big deal out of Jack Gallagher because really it seems like once he kind of came around and the crowd kind of got his shtick and they started really getting behind him and he actually got over, WWE kind of is starting to do everything they could with him. They had him on every episode of Raw, every episode of 205 Live. He was in that feud with Daivari. It seems like WWE is really high on Gallagher, and I feel like he's cooled off recently in favor of Cedric Alexander, and I think that's because they're kind of trying to keep Gallagher on the down low while they build Alexander to lose to Neville at Fastlane.
See, and that logic's perfectly sound to me. I totally understand where you're coming from. Again, though, for me, you know how sometimes I could take little things and kind of blow them up? Just Neville targeting Gallagher to me in that segment tells me that they're going to blow their load early. They want that match. They want Neville versus Gallagher. So I'm thinking that'll be fascinating.
Oh, man, and I have the exact opposite reaction. I saw Neville going after Gallagher, and I was like, oh, that's planting the seeds for a Mania match.
Right, and see, I think they're going to blow their load early and not wait till Mania. So, it's interesting because I don't think there's anything really faulty in either of our reasonings. It's just timing.
You're thinking they're going to do Gallagher Neville immediately and then save Tozawa Neville for Mania.
Tozawa Neville or Cedric Neville, depending on Cedric's trajectory, he could just as easily be in that Mania match. But Gallagher is not going to have that Mania match to me.
You know what, though? I appreciate that we're able to have this discussion because there are enough over baby faces in the Cruiserweight division to have a discussion like this in the first place.
Yeah, maybe that means there's hope for the division after all. I mean, it's still a far cry from what we want it to be, but, Tozawa's debut and then a segment like this, the Cruiserweight division had a good night tonight. So definitely appreciate that. It did kind of have a bit of a hiccup for me because we go from that. Well, I mean, before that, I should say, Emelina vignette aired like when we came back from commercial. I'm not even going to waste a breath on this. I simply said in my notes, Emelina vignette says that she'll debut next week. We'll see. That was it.
I was going to say, Emelina vignette says she'll debut next week. This isn't even the first time we've seen.
Exactly. I'm not going to waste time on this because you already know how angry you and I are, and I'm sure many people are. I'm sure I'll be joking with Jackie about this on Twitter.
Do you remember how excited I was the night that she was debuting? That might have been the first Raw that I watched all football season. Yeah. And then she didn't debut. And they didn't let us know that she wasn't going to debut until like 10:30 that night. That pissed me off beyond belief.
You were so pissed on Twitter. It was hilarious. But I mean, I felt for you. I felt for me. I
That
felt for
that
everybody.
might be my Twitter rant of 2016, like the best Twitter rant that I had of 2016.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. That was freaking gold. But again, that's exactly why, though, I'm not going down that rabbit hole here. I simply put in my notes, we'll see. And that's what we'll do. We'll see. But we
Yeah.
come back from that, and we have six-man tag team action in the Cruiserweight division. Neville, Dar, and Nice versus Cedric, Gallagher, and Perkins. To me, my notes say short match. Neville walked out on his team, and Cedric pinned Dar, which, that might actually be punctuating that feud. I mean, Cedric left Alicia. Now he's pinned Dar. I think he's kind of left both of them in the dust. That's for
Yeah,
WWE to
because he's
decide.
going after Neville next because he's winning the 5-way tomorrow night.
We shall see. We shall see, my man. I'm still picking Gallagher, obviously, but I do like that Cedric got the win for his team. And I even put in my notes that I still hope he challenges for the title at Mania. I mean, yeah, Tozawa came in like a star, but to me, Cedric still has the story. Like, I love that Cedric got in shape. I love that the crowd respected him so much that they said, please sign Cedric. Like, he deserves that WrestleMania moment to me.
Dude, I actually saw a post on Reddit. I don't know if it was yesterday or just sometime in the last week, that it would be really interesting if Triple H sort of formed like an army of current and former NXT talents that he, like with Joe, got in the door of WWE. And it was like Joe and Neville and a bunch of guys like that. And then the one babyface that would be on the team is Cedric Alexander, because he would be like that unwilling, like Shawn Michaels to JBL, like, I don't want to do Triple H's bidding, but I owe my WWE career to him, so I definitely have to just go along with what he says, because he is responsible for everything I've ever gotten in this stage. Like, that, you could tell such a compelling babyface story with that. And of course they're not going to do it, but I just wanted to bring it up to crush everyone's dreams about a storyline that would be amazing that's never going to happen.
Ooh, that's such a me move. Look at you pulling it off. But yeah,
Hashtag Scum Squad, baby, buy the shirt.
444 life, and yes, buy the short or the which it's all fucking fabulous. But yeah, I mean, I that is an amazing story, and that's one thing that if I really wanted to tonight, which I don't, because again, I actually enjoyed Raw, that I could rant about WWE and mainly Raw, because again, I don't want to piss on SmackDown, but just their lack of passion for possibility, and that's where the passion should be the strongest, when it's your self-proclaimed flagship show. It's 3 hours, and you have a roster for days in terms of star power and just sheer number. But yeah, this tag match is really nothing. Cedric got the winning pin. Nothing more to say than that. Do you have anything else you want to say about that?
Well, the only thing that I would really want to add is that I feel like this was a nice bit of momentum going into the 5-way, and that's kind of a big reason why I think Cedric's going to win.
See where you're coming from. I love that you and I, again, just have two totally different perspectives. 205 Live's going to decide a winner. Watch Noam Dar freaking win it, and we're both wrong.
You know what? I'm glad you brought up Dar, because that actually was another point I wanted to make. I was not a fan of Neville leaving his team high and dry, and not because it makes me dislike Neville, because that's the whole point. I'm supposed to dislike Neville, but because it makes me feel sympathy for Dar and Nice, and I shouldn't feel that for heels.
Yeah, and you know what, too? Like, I should bring up, this isn't even the first time they've done this whole thing, because I think on the most recent, before the one tomorrow night, of course, episode of 205 Live, like, Neville and Dar were tagging. I think it was just a 2-on-2 tag match, and he left Dar again. So how Dar did not see this coming, I don't know, but it happened again, and I swear if Alicia leaves him, that's going to be the final nail in him having abandonment issues. So, yeah.
Well, I was going to say that's going to be the final nail in him as a heel. He's going to turn face.
I know, right? Everybody stop believing me. Maybe him and Becky could form like a tag team about people who just turn their backs on them.
That would be so adorable. All the accents.
I found a new love in Becky Lynch. Just something like that. I don't freaking know.
Becky.
But yeah, we go from that to another Jericho segment. It was very brief. Chris Jericho pretty much ran an idea by Kevin Owens. Next week's show, the Festival of Friendship. Can I just say, too, as a side note, because I really haven't had many of these tonight, but I just have to say, away from my notes. I love that Kevin Owens, whenever Chris Jericho talks, and especially when he gets on one of these tirades, just looks at him like he wants to slap him in the face, or like he's just like in awe of like, am I really dealing with this shit right now when I'm Universal Champion? Because he just looks at Chris like, okay, Festival of Friendship. Like he's almost like a parent, and he's just trying to keep up this ruse of friendship. And Jericho's just so giddy, like, yeah, Festival of Friendship, best thing ever. I love it. I love the
I feel like we've
dynamism
got to
of it.
also take into account that Kevin Owens is a sociopath, so he's not actually friends with Jericho. He's just using Jericho for the benefits.
Exactly. Hey, Saint tried to warn him about that very fact, and he got hit in the face with a cell phone for it. So Jericho reaps what he sows, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah,
like Jericho will slowly begin to realize, hey, I always did stuff for you. I always showed up at your birthday parties. I always babysat your kids when you needed me to. You never did anything for me. I don't think you actually like me that much.
and then Kevin. But you know what though? There's one thing I want in their program, and I only say that because it's legitimately so over that I feel like Kevin Owens could really help the cause. Like, I would have Jericho do exactly what you said, and then Kevin Owens in his own heelish way be like, well, of course. I mean, you're a freaking idiot, with you and your list and everything. And then when Jericho puts Owens on the list, I want Owens to have like a meltdown over it because he's so offended. Like, I would just love for him to just freak out, be like, no, you can't put me on the list. I put you on the list, or just like have this meltdown. Like, those two are so good at just being childish, but in a comedic way. And that's really one of the biggest selling points to me about their program. But yeah,
they're like the Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly of wrestling.
exactly. Step Brothers reference for the win. But bringing it full circle, I mean, I'm looking forward to this Festival of Friendship because I could just see Jericho doing all this stuff and Kevin Owens just trying to suppress the sheer annoyance he is feeling with Chris Jericho until it bubbles over. That's the way I see it playing out anyway. I could be wrong. Maybe Goldberg shows up and he spears them both because he's 50 and he's OP and just fuck everything else. But
I
yeah.
can't believe it never clicked for me before, but I'm pretty sure this whole Jericho run has just been Jericho and Owens's like riff on Step Brothers.
Yeah. I mean, because
like even if you think about it, like one of the most iconic moments in Step Brothers is when they first realize how much they have in common when they're in their room, and he's like, "Favorite dinosaur on 3, 1, 2, 3, Velociraptor." Did we just become best friends? Yup. And like Jericho and Owens had that moment a few weeks ago where it was like, you know whose fault this was? Roman Reigns, and then they hugged. Like that's the same freaking thing. Like, has this entire run by Jericho just been Jericho and Owens riffing on Step Brothers?
Oh my god, I can picture them watching that movie together and just taking notes, and it's just the funniest fucking shit to me.
They just watch it every week to try and come up with a new reference to sneak into their mic work.
It's like Jericho's like, ooh, if we switch out Velociraptor for Roman Reigns, that's gold. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the segment. It was brief. It was really meant to promote Raw in Las Vegas, and we also know we're getting
favorite non-pornographic magazine to masturbate to. Good Housekeeping.
But god damn it. But we got that, and we got Charlotte versus Bayley for the Raw Women's Championship. So Raw in Las Vegas is looking pretty good.
Oh, dude. I bet you now that I kind of feel like I'm in the know about the whole Step Brothers thing. How much do you want to bet Jericho sings in the Festival of Friendship next week, and Kevin Owens says that he has the voice of an angel or something like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, given Jericho's experience with Fozzy and everything, I would not be surprised if Jericho tried to serenade Owens at the Festival of Friendship at all. So you might be onto something there. But yeah, I'm really curious what they're gonna do. Maybe it'll have like a "This Is Your Life" kind of vibe, but rather than like visiting Kevin Owens' life, they like document their friendship, and Jericho's just so overly obnoxious about it. But we shall see. After this, before we got into actual Raw content, we actually got a really nice video package hyping up Elimination Chamber this Sunday. I thought it was so well done. I love that they had former chamber participants talk about the chamber, how brutal it is, the type of match it is, and that you never walk out the same. Ooh. So Elimination Chamber this Sunday, really cool video package. I liked it. But continuing on the roll of the Raw content, we have Samoa Joe versus Roman Reigns. Partner, what'd you think about it?
Oh, this match wasn't even that long. I like that Roman got jumped before the match, but what I don't like is, oh, you got jumped before the match and it still took interference to beat you. Like you said in the beginning, they overprotected Reigns tonight big time.
Yeah, I mean, and Raw, you were so close because again, I was in a good mood. I was feeling everything the show was doing, especially with the cruiserweight division. You know, now that we've actually talked about it, the cruiserweight division as a whole might be the star of the show because they got some much needed momentum and they took a big step in the right direction to me. But Reigns, man, fucking Reigns, like it didn't completely sully my mood. Obviously, I mean, I gave the show a 9 out of 10. Now after talking about it, I may go down to like a full number. So maybe 8 out of 10 is more respectable to how I was feeling about this show. But I mean, Reigns, I like the jump in the beginning because, again, it makes sense for the character they want Joe to be on the main roster. This, the Destroyer, just to go with that. And, beating up everybody. I don't care about having 5-star matches or this, that, and the other. I want to hurt people. And how I hurt people and when I hurt people is entirely at my discretion. Perfect. Heel 101 stuff, right? But it couldn't just be that. You had to have Braun Strowman come out and provide the distraction. And I'm sorry, maybe this is just me being that fanboy, but the Uranagi to me, it was kind of awkward. It was kind of the same way when the curb stomp for Seth was originally banned and he had a match with Ziggler on one Raw and he did that weird like faceplant kind of maneuver and he got the win with that and it was so unexpected and jarring for everybody. They're like, what was that? I don't know if we're ever going to see the Muscle Buster again because I'm sure it's like different governance, and we've talked about it before, between NXT and the main roster. So NXT might have still said, okay, Joe, it was a freak thing that happened with Tyson Kidd. Continue to use the Muscle Buster. Maybe Raw, knowing that, they had a different approach, and they said, no, you got to axe it. Good news is he's still keeping the Coquina Clutch because he used it on Seth, but I mean, maybe after that, they'll axe that too because Seth did get hurt. But that to me is what makes Samoa Joe. I hate to see him stripped of that, and I don't even really care for what he substituted it with. I mean, the Uranagi's fine. Maybe it'll grow on me, but I was just kind of like, eh. So, yeah, this match, which on paper should have been like, oh, man, Joe's facing Roman Reigns, which we've both admitted, solid in-ring worker is Reigns. I mean, great. And with the credibility, if Joe would have actually gone over, great way to establish him. But that overprotection, to me, almost made Joe look like an afterthought, especially given that Braun, to his credit, and I don't want to hold it against him, in my mind, went out and had another moment tonight. I thought that beat down on Reigns was fantastic. The power slam, the steel steps to the face, and then driving him through the barricade. Braun, and I'll say it again, for me, gets better and better every week, and he's just continuing to develop that star quality. I just hate that it was at the expense of Samoa Joe, who, in my mind, because he was newer than Braun Strowman as it relates to the main roster, needed it more. So that's really my only kind of quasi rant of the evening, because this really rubbed me the wrong way.
I have a question for you, John.
Sure.
Do you think we're going to see Roman Reigns between now and Fastlane?
Probably, yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because really, I was thinking, because remember, I think it's been like 2 years running now. WWE has gotten some kind of like a kayfabe, let's, put Roman Reigns, the character, out of commission for a while so that people forget about him before his big match at the next show.
Right, right.
And that's been consistently during the road to WrestleMania, and that's where we are. So, Roman being as beat up as he's going to be by Braun Strowman might be an excuse to write him off TV. And really, if you think about it, if he is on TV next week, then that's almost more disappointing because that means like, oh, he's no-selling the beatdown from Braun.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I completely agree with everything you just said. I think what you said, especially as it relates to the beatdown and like how it looks, makes all the sense in the world. I just don't think WWE has that kind of thoughtfulness about it. And even if we don't see Roman next week, I could see him showing up the week after because Fastlane is March 5th. So there's still a little bit of time. And I definitely think we're going to see him before Fastlane, if not next week, definitely the week after next. But in the moment, just looking at this in a vacuum, I hated that Joe was just pushed to the side, but the fan in me of Braun Strowman loved what he did tonight. Again, specifically that post-match beatdown. Braun making those moments and maximizing his minutes, and I really hope they don't fuck this up because I am just loving everything Braun Strowman's doing. Like he comes out and he commands my full attention. That's where Braun is with me, and I don't want that to be tainted. So great way to end the show. Again, just wish it would have been, more about Joe and less about Strowman in that sense. But I get that they have a match to promote. I just feel like they could have done it better. Is there anything else you want to say about it?
I'm ready to move on.
All right, let's move on to high spots and low shots. I'm going to keep it real simple. My low shot is Kevin Owens because he meant the end of his title reign tonight, all because his best friend sold him down the river. So Kevin Owens is my low shot.
All right, well, that's fair. I think I'm going to have to make my low shot Sami Zayn, though, because he had a shot at the U.S. title. He got super kicked in the face, and he lost in a way that's clean enough that he's basically at the back of the line now. So way to go, Sami. And also, another reason why Sami Zayn fits as my low shot is because Braun Strowman is demanding competition, and Mick Foley's answer is, oh, well, you're going to face Roman Reigns. Is Mick Foley going to tell Roman Reigns, no, you shouldn't, no, you can't, you're not good enough, there's no way you're going to survive against Braun? No, of course not, because he's freaking Roman Reigns. But Sami Zayn got that treatment, bitch, and now that Roman is kind of seen as the prize for Braun Strowman to fight at the pay-per-view, it makes Sami Zayn look even worse.
Yeah, that's an excellent point that I didn't even really consider, but very well articulated. I agree with your pick. Rolling right along, my high spot is Braun Strowman because I even put in my notes again, better and better every week. Squashed 4 guys tonight. Yes, they were scrubs, but I like that we go back to the talking point of I want competition, and he gets Roman Reigns at Fastlane. Love the beatdown to close the show. I just wish we lived in a world where if Roman Reigns had to be a babyface, at least Braun Strowman as a heel would look like Reigns' equal, but we all know that's not true. And I think Braun, the way he carries himself, it shouldn't even be that much of a stretch. It's just the way that Roman Reigns is booked that it is. And I completely agree with what you said, that I think at Fastlane, yeah, Taker's going to interfere. And that's going to be how Strowman wins when you just look at him, forget about how he works in the ring, though that's certainly another point in his favor. Just looking at him, it should be, yeah, he could beat anybody. But then with the way he works with the running power slam and how he uses his power, nobody should have to interfere. But, it kind of takes away the mystique when it's like, oh, well, Taker came out. That's why Strowman won. And that's going to tick me off if that happens, which it probably will. But in the moment, Strowman had a great night tonight. He continues to make his time on Raw his own. And
you know what, though? It really does kind of make me wonder who Strowman's opponent at WrestleMania is going to be, because we know we're getting Jericho against each other. We know we're getting Lesnar, Goldberg. We know we're getting Taker, Reigns. As far as Raw goes, who's left for Braun? Unless they're going to stick him in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, have him win that, like I did in my fantasy booking. But I feel like they built him up for more than that.
I would agree with you that I feel like they built him up for more than that. But on the other hand, I actually also agree that your fantasy booking might actually come true, because I don't know what big match unless.
And even then, I would say maybe put him against the Big Show, but the match with Shaq is happening. As much as I'm against that idea and how dumb I think it is that you're going to have Shaq in a friggin' wrestling match, it's happening. That's the one rumor that's been around for months now that hasn't changed, and Meltzer is still insisting, yeah, that's at Mania. That's on the card. It's locked in. Count on it happening. And that, again, that leaves Strowman with even less of a possibility of having a real, a match to himself at Mania. So I guess he's just going to be the 2017 armbar winner. That's a real shame, though, because it feels like he's been built for so much more than that.
Either that, and I'm saying it's a long shot, I admit it, but let's also remember my fantasy booking for Strowman. If Finn Balor can't have the Undertaker, maybe we'll do Demon Balor versus Strowman. Demon Balor beats Strowman, that immediately puts him back in the Universal title hunt. Maybe we'd even get Demon Balor versus Lesnar, because
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know what else.
No, dude, I'm telling you, I said it earlier in chat. I don't know if you have been paying any attention to chat, but I think Roman Reigns is beating Taker Mania 33. He is beating Brock Lesnar for the Universal Championship at SummerSlam, and he is facing John Cena again for the Universal Championship, maybe even in a champion versus championship match, depending on whether Cena's still on SmackDown and still has the championship, or if he gets moved over to Raw at Mania 34. Like that's Roman. That's the next 14 months of WWE's booking on Raw of Roman Reigns. I'm predicting it now. Put it down, book it, mark my words. That's happening.
Yeah, I would agree. It's just a matter of, because again, focusing on Strowman, I can't think of anything else to do except, oddly enough, for either of our fantasy bookings. Now, I will readily admit that the armbar seems far more likely, but the only other quality opponent, if we wanted to give Strowman more, would be a returning Balor. And given the credibility of the
Yeah.
Demon, if he topples a giant like that, then I could even
Yeah.
see Demon Balor versus a Brock Lesnar.
I
Lesnar would
almost
kill
feel
him.
like if Balor would beat Strowman, though, it would almost make the fans kind of resent him because, like, I feel like the fans would resent Roman if they built Braun, made him this big monster, only to feed him to Roman. Well, I don't think people want to feed Braun to Balor either necessarily.
Right. I mean, we'll see, dude, because they really have kind of put themselves in a corner. I even admit it again.
I mean, I think Balor is returning before WrestleMania, so that he has an opportunity to build something, so he can be in a match at Mania that means something. Like I think I could see Balor returning at the Fastlane pay per view, or maybe even before then.
I mean, hell, with people talking about all these pieces with Seth possibly out of the equation, I've heard rumors of, oh, what if, Joe turns face? If there's a face Samoa Joe, why not put him against Strowman? Why the hell not? That's a guy that I could
I
believe
don't.
in beating Braun Strowman.
I mean, maybe eventually, but Joe debuted as a heel. They're not going to turn him within his first 2 months of being on the main roster.
I mean, I agree with you. It's just Seth getting re-injured, I think, threw a lot up in the air. And I was even hearing again,
Dude, just
like,
freaking replace Seth with Balor. Do Balor versus Triple H at Mania.
I mean, why the hell not? I think it's a great idea. I was even thinking that too. Like, if they didn't want to do Balor versus like any one person, just to give him the Seth storyline, maybe you could even have him say, I was sitting at home, just itching to come back, and I heard you talk about how you're a creator. Well, you didn't create Finn Balor or something to that effect, and he just stands up to Triple H, and you have your feud. Easy as that. I don't
Yeah.
know, man, but it's going to be very interesting again, where guys like Balor, Joe, Strowman, where those guys fit in the WrestleMania card. But moving on to our next segment,
Did
Raw.
I ever give my high spot?
Oh no, you didn't give your high spot. I apologize. Who is your high spot?
Just to be clear, your high spot was Strowman, right?
That's correct.
Okay, then I'm going to take Joe for my high spot because it freaking beat Roman Reigns in his debut match. Even if it was a distraction, he beat Roman Reigns in his debut. You can't ask for more than that.
Yeah, you can. As I've said, I mean, I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't say it now. A win is a win is a win. So you've got Joe, I've got Strowman. Moving on to our final segment, Raw request. I really
I
said it.
forgot this was even a thing.
Yeah, dude, when I tell you I took everything in my notes because I didn't want to miss a thing, I meant it. And Raw request was one of the first things like I thought of after all the show notes, of course. And I even already said my Raw request at the top of the show because I thought you made a brilliant point about the parallels between Raw and SmackDown, or I should say the distinctions between the two when it comes to big matches. And that was my Raw request. Have less dirty finishes in your big matches. Let your big matches breathe. Let them happen, and don't feel like you have to do dirty finishes for a greater narrative. There are other ways to get there. So that's my Raw request. What's your Raw request?
Well, my Raw request is going to be in vain because they're never going to do it, but I still feel like I have to put it out there into the universe just in case. My Raw request is to allow Roman Reigns to look vulnerable on the occasion. It's never going to actually happen because The only time he's ever going to look truly vulnerable is when he's getting double teamed or triple teamed or quadruple teamed or octuple teamed or whatever the hell. Or, somebody like takes a freaking Triple H takes a sledgehammer to him, or someone takes like a freaking forklift and drops it on him, or whatever. But yeah, just allowing Roman to look vulnerable. If you're not going to turn him heel, which I've accepted isn't ever going to happen at this point, if you're not going to turn him heel, at least allow him to look vulnerable so that it's easier to cheer for him and he doesn't look like such a snotty, smug, obnoxious, untouchable douchebag. Because that's what he is right now.
I agree with all of that. I feel like that was perfectly articulated. There's nothing I can really add to that. Are there any concluding remarks you have about tonight's Raw?
No, sir. I'm glad we got a nice long episode of TWitWoW in, though. We were just under the 2 hour mark. We're at around 145, 1 hour 45 minutes. Yeah, it feels good to kind of show up and immediately go on one of these marathon episodes of TWitWoW. And hopefully we'll be able to kind of drive that timestamp down a little bit over the weeks. But our first week back in the saddle, it feels good to be able to really get all of our thoughts out there into the world. We were kind of middling as far as live viewership goes, but hopefully you guys that are TWitWoW fans that enjoy the product get to hear everything that we had to say about this. And yeah, man, I'm glad to be back, and it's good that we came back on a Raw that wasn't completely awful.
I completely agree with you. With that said, my friend, this has been Raw. This has been TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John. That's my co-owner and commentary action. Guys, I'm going to direct you to the description of this video because that has all of our social media, our subreddit, our Patreon, and our Teespring store for all TWitWoW merch. So if you want to know everything we're about, check the description. It is all there. The only thing I'm going to plug is upcoming content. We've got a really interesting week, but even before that, I want to plug Q&A. We do Q&A the last Friday of every month. That means that this month it is going to be February 24th. Will be Q&A. Now for Q&A, very simple. You guys can submit questions either on this video when it's processing, and you can leave comments. You can tweet at us with questions. Again, you can find our handles in the description. You can message us on our Facebook page. Be sure to leave a like if you do visit the page and give us questions there. You can divvy up questions any way you want. It could be all three to me, all three to Ashton, or all three to both, or really however you want to do it. And that is the maximum. 3 questions. Lowered from 5. 3 seemed like a better number. And yeah, guys, now that I really get to promote it, I hope there's a better turnout this time. A bit of a dip in the last Q&A. I want to see what you guys come out with these questions. So you've got 3 questions to play with on really any topic you want. We'll let you know if we think the question is like kind of out of our range or a bit too personal or what have you. But yeah, I mean, go nuts, and we'll let you know otherwise. Other than that, guys, this week it's going to be very fun because we have SmackDown Live on Tuesday, so our first SmackDown Live review tomorrow night, and we get to see that main event we all want to see, Randy Orton versus John Cena on the go-home show before Elimination Chamber this Sunday. Now, Ashton, correct me if I'm wrong, but don't our viewers also have a New Japan show to look forward to on Wednesday? Because I thought we had, like, on our itinerary for New Japan, a show coming up there.
That would be correct. New beginning in Sapporo.
And guys, what's even better about that? That's on my birthday. I can't think of a better way to celebrate my birthday than with New Japan Pro Wrestling. Going to be a great time. And then I'm just going to assume that Friday, because we don't have a Q&A, you can anticipate our Elimination Chamber preview and predictions. And then Sunday is going to be Elimination Chamber live reactions. So really stacked week, guys. We got SmackDown Live. We got a New Japan show on Wednesday. Preview and predictions for Chamber on Friday. And then live reactions on Sunday. Again, because TakeOver is still a ways away for NXT. There will be no NXT review this week, but you still have plenty to look forward to otherwise. And with that said, guys, that's it. Hope you enjoyed this Raw review. And until then, tune in and peace out.